Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're here to recognize the best of the first quarter of this year, and we're going to start off with our chaplain, Chap.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for today, and thank you for the all the people in our agency that have come here this morning to recognize some men and women that have gone the extra mile, that have done nothing less than possess a spirit of excellence. We thank you for the witness that they have in their various departments here within the Sheriff's Office. We thank you for their families and friends that have always been a great source of support, and we thank you for their willingness to sacrifice their loved ones to be part of this agency. And now, Lord, in these perilous times that we're in, we ask that your continued hand of blessing, protection would rest upon law enforcement, not only in our agency, but throughout the Treasure Coast, Gold Coast, and Space Coast. And let your peace, your presence, your power, and your love be with us now and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. First up is Paul Taylor. Paul, you here? Oh, yeah, of course he is. Yeah. Those of you might remember that Paul was recognized as the Detective of the Year in 2014 for his investigation of the diesel theft from the Love's truck stop. Just to highlight that case, it started off with $3,000 worth of diesel fuel theft from our local Love's truck stop. Through Paul's investigation, he found 60 similar thefts in 19 states. The conclusion of the investigation, he identified seven different drivers using 5 different semis to steal over 200,000 gallons of diesel. And for that, he was recognized by our office as the Detective of the Year. Subsequent to that, he has been recognized by the National Sheriff's Association with a Medal of Merit for his contribution to our community and to the field of law enforcement and criminal justice. And with that, they presented a beautiful certificate as well as a Medal of Merit, and I want to present that to him right now. Don't go anywhere. In addition to the recognition by the National Sheriff's Association, the Florida Retail Federation also recognized Paul with a certificate of commendation for outstanding service and commitment to the state of Florida, its citizens, and its businesses by going above and beyond the call of duty, exhibiting exemplary law enforcement, and making our state a safer place to live and work. From the Florida Retail Federation. Congratulations. And from Love's Truck Stop, another $500 gift. No, that's it. Here you go. Thank you. Next, Ryan Register. Is Ryan here? If Ryan's not busy enough, he successfully completed 272 hours of study in the Criminal Justice Leadership Program and is awarded his certificate of completion on April 15th of this year. Ryan is the 7th person to graduate from the leadership class at Indiana State College and is the 2nd person from our agency to graduate. So thank you so much. Ryan, congratulations. Next, we're going to recognize Ronnie Wentz. Ronnie, come on up. You know, the chief and I were talking just yesterday. Major events in our lives, we can pinpoint exactly where we were, what we were doing, who we were with. And if you reflect back to the morning of February 28, 2013, I think everybody here can attest who you were with, where you were when you got the news that Sergeant Gary Morales was killed. Today I want to recognize Ronnie Wentz. Through the efforts of the Criminal Investigation Division and lead detective Ronnie Wentz, a jury convicted the killer of first-degree murder of Sergeant Morales. What we did was we had a flag flying in front of the office on the day that verdict came out, and the encased flag was flying over the sheriff's office right here in front the time the verdict was read on October 1st, 2015. And what I want to do is present the flag to you, Ronnie, in this case. That's just a tribute to your hard work in this investigation. And I know this case was very hard for Ronnie because in addition to all the challenges he faced with the investigation, your personal feelings get involved, and he had to put those aside and forge forward and do a great job, which he did. That same case, the jury came back with a death recommendation, and it was through the diligent and thorough case presentation of State Attorney Chief Investigator Nora Pfeiffer that jury recommended a 9-3 vote for the death sentence of the killer. Also, on the date that the death sentence came about, we had the flag removed from the front of the sheriff's office, and we were going to present it to the Chief Investigator Nora Pfeiffer at this time, and the date of that was October 9th of 2015. Nora, come on up. And last but definitely not least, Tom Backadall, come on up. Through his skillful, passionate, that's an understatement, and dedicated prosecutorial efforts of the 19th Judicial Circuit, Chief Assistant State Attorney Tom Backadall, a judge sentenced the killer to death. This flag was flying over the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office on that date, which was April 29, 2016. Next, we're going to have Sheldon Burkett, the resident agent in charge of DEA, to do a special presentation. Sheldon, come on up.
For those of you who are unaware of the task force program within the federal government, one of the best things that I think that DEA does is we bring on what we call task force officers. We run them through a background. They come to DEA. They're basically given the same authority that all of our agents have. Well, they are given the same authority our agents have. They work alongside the agents in my office, and they do the job that our agents do all over the country. It's a great program for us, and I think it's a great program for the state and local counterparts that we work with, mostly because we're basically using their resources, we're using their expertise, their informant base, their knowledge of the community, and a lot of our agents aren't from the community, so they're having access to our money to be able to pay informants, our money to be able to pay buys, our wiretap capabilities, the things that they can use from us, and then the things that we get back from them with their knowledge of the community. It's a great program. In my 29 years in the government, I can honestly say it's probably the most successful thing that I've ever seen happen with what DEA does. Without it, I think we, as an agency, we would fail. One thing that we like to do is we like to recognize our TFOs. If they've been a TFO with us for 2 years, we actually present them with their badge and their credentials in a shadow box so they can keep with them the rest of their career. Andy Belanca, come on up. Andy was a TFO with us for quite a while. He was instrumental in writing and doing a lot of wiretaps for us. How many wiretaps would you say you wrote when you were there? 5 or 6? No, I mean as far as like investigations. 6 or 7. So I mean he was the affiant on a lot of cases that we did. He was the person pulling his hair out, trying to do all the re-ups and write the affidavits. But I'll tell you a funny story about Andy. One of the other reasons we like TFOs is because on investigations where they go outside the box a little bit, most of the agents that work for me have been around the block a little bit. So we had a case that was we were trying to do a controlled delivery out of Haiti, and they were looking for a volunteer to go on one of the Coast Guard frigates to basically coordinate the controlled delivery. Well, all the agents in my office were like hiding in the corners with their heads down because they had been through these things, and bless Andy's heart, his hand's up there. I'm like, I'm ready to do this. I want the challenge. Well, he got stuck on that. He got stuck on that ship for over 2 weeks. And between the ship and Haiti, he spent about 30 days out of country between Haiti and the ship. So, that's the other thing that we love the task force officers for. They're always up for those kind of challenges. So, come on up here, Andy. On behalf of the DEA, we would like to present you with your credentials and your badge from being a task force officer.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And we're still getting bills from that all-inclusive resort he stayed at in Haiti. But great job. From the Department of Detention, we're going to have Captain Bill Lawhorn recognize his honorees.
Good morning. For the detention deputy of the first quarter for 2016, it's my pleasure to introduce Deputy Gerald Knight. During the second half of 2015, Deputy Knight assumed responsibility of the fire and safety coordinator position at the jail. Aside from his many personal commitments as a youth wrestling coach, a father, a dedicated husband, Deputy Knight dedicates his time and passion to increasing the safety of the jail for staff and visitors, as well as the inmates who live there. One of his responsibilities is to ensure emergency preparedness procedures and drills are run throughout the year, ensuring everyone understands their role. In conducting the fire drills, Deputy Knight makes certain to select real-life scenarios based upon trends he researches and finds other jails throughout the country, things that they're doing and experiencing. He introduces situations that challenge the knowledge and skills of the responding deputies to make sure they are ready for the worst-case scenario. In the first quarter of 2016, Deputy Knight ran 4 emergency drills covering each shift and involving the sheriff's staff, our medical staff, our maintenance, the county maintenance staff, and Aramark staff. As a fire affects everyone in the jail, Deputy Knight designed these drills to not only challenge each division's abilities, but to work to bring unison to all the departments who work there. In the short time he has been assigned to this position, Deputy Knight has made a dramatic improvement in our overall emergency response procedures. He has demonstrated and proven that when all departments work together as a team, we make the St. Lucie County Jail a better and safer place to work. For these reasons, Deputy Knight, you were selected for the detention deputy of the first quarter. Thank you. And next on our list, it's my pleasure to introduce Sergeant Brian Buchko, who's the detention supervisor of the first quarter for 2016. Sergeant Buchko is currently assigned as the jail security sergeant. He oversees a majority of the facility's security systems and operations. Amongst one of his many responsibilities is managing the technical aspects of the computerized security systems alongside our own IT department, our county maintenance staff, and different vendors who have software in our building. Sergeant Buchko has become the go-to person for computer-related failures, problems with the inmate phone system, wiring and cabling of all the systems, televisions, and computer networks. With a recent overhaul of the county maintenance staff, Sergeant Buchko's knowledge of the building and its inner workings surpassed that of the county's new staff. In a pinch, when a breaker blows and no one can find how to turn it back on, Sergeant Buchko usually knows the answer. When a water leak is found and the shutoff can't be located, it's Sergeant Buchko who has the answer. His knowledge and dedication to the Department of Detention is parallel to none. In the first quarter of 2016, Sergeant Buchko took charge of a multitude of maintenance-related projects that require coordination of outside contractors, along with the introduction of major power tools and what the detention staff consider weapons and escape mechanisms, along with the staffing of the security personnel to ensure that no inmate interferes with the improvements being made. While doing this, Sergeant Buchko has become the lead coordinator for 4 different contractors entering the building, along with coordinating the new county maintenance staff who are just learning their way around the facility. Sergeant Buchko does this while verifying everyone's background to ensure no one is allowed into the facility to victimize staff or inmates, and he juggles all this while being fiscally responsible with budgetary dollars. All in all, with each project comes a need for a level of knowledge and expertise that Sergeant Buchko possesses, or he researches prior to the onset of a project. His knowledge and research has saved the county countless dollars, time, and resources. For these reasons and many more, we have selected Sergeant Buchko as the supervisor of the quarter for the Department of Detention. Thank you, Brian.
Now Major Rothman will recognize the Department of Administration.
Magically appear. Good morning. Reading a commendation for Deputy Joe Bell, Deputy John O'Connell, Deputy Robert Doty, and Deputy Tanya Wright.
John is here.
Are you awake? Barely? Good morning. During the 10 days of the St. Lucie County Fair, these deputies helped Explorer Post 400 park 28,226 vehicles. They donated many hours to the post to ensure law enforcement presence while the explorers were working at the fair. During this quarter, these deputies also donated time to assist the post with law enforcement training. Joe, Robert, John, and Tanya are team players and a tremendous asset to our Sheriff's Office family. They are continuously dedicated to the time to the explorers by mentoring and guiding them to a successful future in law enforcement. Thank you for their commitment to the Explorer Post. And believe it or not, right now Robert Doty's up in they're up in Leon County with Explorer training, so he's still there. I also have
Doris Tracy, she's not here.
Doris is not here. She's either off or in. We got the basketball camp this week. Distinguished Service Award for Master Deputy Kevin Lindstad.
Retired.
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 We're going to tell you you're coming back, right? 30 days.
RET on the end of it.
Now, I must say before I read this was written before he actually retired, so bear that in mind. Master Deputy Kevin Lindstad is assigned as a full-time instructor in the training unit. Master Deputy Lindstad has taken the initiative to assist with the development of several programs such as Below 100, the Spear Technique, and Rifle Training. He also participates in the ILEO 2-week new hire program by teaching new deputies important officer safety skills as they enter their new career field of law enforcement, which generally was the lead. So we've really had to fill your shoes there, Kevin. Master Deputy Kevin Lindstad has been a Canine handler for 22 years and continues to hold this position, hold this position while he was assigned to the train unit. He maintained his Canine certification, trains other current and future Canine handlers, and responds to call-outs as needed. Now, after 31 years, I know this is way behind, with the agency, Master Deputy Kevin Lindstad and his current partner, Canine Ivan, have retired. And thank you for your hard work.
Yay.
That's it.
He did confess to me this morning he would have dressed up, but we took all of the cool clothes away from him. That's...
I didn't know if your stand-up routine was over.
No, yeah, it's over. It's Kevin's.
Well, I know I heard that. So, morning, everybody. Very happy to be here and present the civilian of the first quarter, Mary Ann McPherson. We'll do the wave later. Mary Ann was the patrol operations secretary, and while there, she began implementing and evaluating some procedures to streamline things and also make it more efficient and effective down there. There's a constant change of personnel, and that's one of the greatest changes that happens down in patrol, because patrol kind of feeds everything else. So I always say, it's my Ouija board, and without the things that Mary Ann set up, we wouldn't be able to balance that board out. So Mary Ann, she created a spreadsheet which consolidated numerous categories of information required for consideration when balancing patrol's manpower. The document is also very useful for personnel that are transferred in and out of the division. She also created a spreadsheet to track manpower, overtime, and other required statistical data that often become necessary, particularly with grants and also with financial considerations that Director Long needs from time to time. The use of these spreadsheets ensures that everything is organized and readily available. She also maintained all the radios for the entire office, ones that were repaired, ones that were no longer in service, ones that were awaiting invoices, and also was responsible for the inventory of these radios, which this year was one of the most smoothest inventories we had. The other thing to keep in mind is our radio system is 15 years old, and it's obsolete. They don't make the radios we use anymore, so it's a constant repair cycle on these, and Mary Ann kept those together and also completed a spreadsheet that helped us track those to make sure that it's done. Mary Ann's never idle. Anybody that knows her, she doesn't sit still. She works hard. She's a tremendous asset, not only to patrol, but now she has moved over, and I stole her as my staff assistant. So congratulations, Mary Ann. And the law enforcement supervisor of the quarter, Sergeant Darren Brown. February 1st, about 6 a.m., deputies Bill Miller and Dave Meisinger responded to an unwelcome person on Summit Street. The subject barricaded himself in a house and was threatening suicide. Witnesses confirmed that he had 2 firearms in the house. The witness also showed a current text from the subject holding a gun to his head. Sergeant Brown responded to the scene, called for additional deputies, and established a perimeter around the situation. He obtained a phone number for the subject and actually started a dialogue with this subject. The subject asked to speak to his girlfriend. Darren Brown, using his keen negotiation skills, negotiated the subject into giving up a couple firearms before he would allow him to speak to the girlfriend. However, in the conversation, after convincing the subject, Sergeant Brown thanked him. The subject said that was okay because he still had 1 gun left. So, still refusing to come out after 1.5 hours of negotiation, special teams were called out to assist Sergeant Brown as he continued speaking to the subject. About 7:45 a.m., as the assets were responding, Sergeant Brown convinced the subject to come out with his hands up. Once in custody, the subject asked to speak to Sergeant Brown and to thank him for his understanding. You know, Sergeant Brown's not on the hostage negotiation team. He's not a trained negotiator. The thing is, these are things that, you know, our deputies do every day, constantly, and deal with people who are emotionally troubled. And last night we had a similar situation. Unfortunately, this one ended well. Last night wasn't so lucky, but most of that is due to Sergeant Brown's skills. Thank you, Darren. We have a life-saving award, Deputy Melvin Goichia. March 25th, 2016, Deputy Goichia was working an off-duty detail at the New York Mets spring training. While working at his assigned post, he was alerted by the audience to a person who was seated in the stands in distress. Deputy Goichia was directed to a subject who was a spectator watching the game. He immediately determined that she not only was in distress, she appeared to have an airway obstruction and was choking. Deputy Goichia recognized this and immediately proceeded to her and performed a Heimlich maneuver. His efforts were successful, and she was examined on scene by rescue, and no further action was needed. She did not need to be transported. Deputy Goichia's actions saved her life. And congratulations, Deputy Goichia. Thank you. And then last but certainly not least, I was asked not to do this award by unnamed persons, but we're having an award, a unit citation for our crime scene unit. So I want all the crime scene unit to come up here.
Who is that, Donna?
Donna Carmichael, Bridget Conklin, Kayla Lee, Caitlin Melton, and Janai Vasquez. Is Janai here? The crime scene unit's responsible for processing evidence, taking agency photographs, writing reports, assisting the video evidence, reviewing fingerprints submitted by deputies and everyone else. During last year, the crime scene unit completed 409 follow-up reports. In these reports, investigators have to list everything that they do during an investigation, along with every piece of evidence they collect. They respond to deputy-involved shootings or use of forces that could cause death or serious injuries. 3 members of the units are certified latent fingerprint examiners. Collectively, they have identified 209 fingerprints, with the majority of the suspects being arrested. Now, that's a heck of a feat. That's 209 people who potentially wouldn't have been ID'd if it wasn't for the fingerprint evidence that these girls not only located, but also identified to a subject. They're also on call every 4 weeks. A few highlights from last year. CSI Carmichael was a lead investigator involving the 4 officers of the Fort Pierce Police Department who were involved in the officer-involved shooting of the gentleman who murdered the 5-year-old. CSI Conklin was a lead investigator in an arson homicide case that occurred last year. She spent several days at the scene with detectives collecting evidence. CSI Vasquez assisted SIU with several marijuana grow house investigations, and she was able to positively link suspects to the grow house through this evidence that she recovered. CSI Melton, who recently joined the unit in October, was the second CSI at the arson and homicide case. And Kayla Lee joined the unit in December and was in field training at the time of this writing, but has moved up and is doing an outstanding job also. The work that these ladies do, they're the unsung heroes here. Them and our ILP unit, they contribute so much that's behind the scenes. If it wasn't for them, many crimes would not get solved. So thank you.
You might have noticed those are all female units, just saying. As they remind me every day. Listen, you know, what our heroes do every day makes me proud. And each and every quarter, I come out with a big list of letters and emails. Like last quarter, I have a big group this quarter, which I want to share with you just a couple. The first one is, how many of you follow us on Facebook? Follow the Sheriff's Office on Facebook? How many of you saw the story of Deputy Gettings saving the dog from a septic tank? You know, when I saw that on our Facebook page, I said, oh, man, that's a nice story. Boy, that was an understatement. The last time I checked, it had close to 3 million views, and I think, Brian, how many comments were posted on our Facebook page? Like 8,000 comments from all over the world. And it just so happens that PETA, the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, saw that post and sent a beautiful letter to us and a framed Compassionate Police Department Award. And I'll just read the letter to you. It says, on behalf of the people of ethical treatment of animals and our more than 5 million members and supporters worldwide, many of whom live in Florida, I'm pleased to let you know that the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office will receive a Compassionate Police Department Award for rescuing a puppy named Pebbles. We'd like to extend a special thank you for Deputy James Gettings for not hesitating to help this terrified dog who is crying for help. Members of your community, both two-legged and four-legged, are lucky to have such compassionate and caring Sheriff's Office personnel, and we're so happy that Puddles has found a new home with a member of your Sheriff's Office. We hope your team's efforts will inspire others to come to the aid of animals in need. In recognition of this action, we'll be sending the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office a framed certificate, which I just shared with you. Again, thank you for your compassion for animals. So great recognition, great award, and I want to thank you. This next one is from Troop 65 from Dublin, Georgia. It's a Boy Scout troop. Dear Sheriff Mascara, my name is Paul Donnell, and I am the Scoutmaster of Boy Scout Troop 65 of Dublin, Georgia. I'm writing you this letter to apprise you of an incident that had happened to our troop on June 11th, 2016 on the Florida Turnpike in your county. At around 12:30 p.m. while we were traveling north on the Florida Turnpike near Port St. Lucie, our troop's bus had a fan belt failure. With God's help, I was able to guide the bus off the turnpike at the Port St. Lucie Service Plaza. After the roadside appear service could not fix our belt, one leader called 911 seeking assistance in finding some type of information to contact a local car rental business after hours. The 911 operator contacted the sheriff's office, and road supervisor sergeant on duty contacted Lieutenant Brian Hester. Lieutenant Hester and the sergeant tried to help us in locating a rental vehicle business that was still open after 4 p.m., but to no avail. Lieutenant Hester then suggested that he could help us to get to the next exit and help us find a motel for the night so we could have shelter until the folks in Dublin, Georgia, came with a rental car. When we explained that we had to make contact with our folks in Georgia and that two parents were driving church vans down to pick us up, Lieutenant Hester offered his church, Westside Baptist Church, as a sanctuary for our group until the drivers arrived around 2 a.m. Sunday morning. Lieutenant Hester made contact with Westside's youth pastor and his wife, who unlocked the church for us. Lieutenant Hester, along with his wife, and Lieutenant Chris Ciccio and his wife, came to the service plaza in their personal vehicles to pick us up and take us to Westside Baptist Church. I wanted you to know that both Lieutenant Hester and Lieutenant Ciccio are a credit to you and your sheriff's office. These men and their families went out of their way to show the true Christian compassion and caring to complete strangers in a time of need. I know how demanding law enforcement officers' jobs can be and how much they value their off time with their family. However, Lieutenant Hester could have ignored our pleas for help by passing the job on to others, but he did not. Lieutenant Hester got involved and tried to help us find a solution. When nothing worked, he offered his church as a place to rest and feel safe. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. As a scout leader, I always try to remind my scouts to live up to the scout oath every day, in particular to help other people at all times. Your men were perfect examples of this point. I wanted you to know that these two fine officers on your staff and what they did for our Boy Scout troop. Yours in scouting, Paul Donnell. That says a lot right there. Great job. The next one is from the project manager for the Gold Star Families Memorial that is going up in Port St. Lucie. Dear Sheriff Mascaro, it's with great pleasure I write this letter of appreciation to your agency in recognizing your patrol division, your criminal investigations division, and your traffic division for providing outstanding escort, security, and safety for Medal of Honor recipient Herschel Woody Williams during his visit to Northport K-9 Grade School in the city of Port St. Lucie on Monday, February 8th. Each deputy was extremely professional in all aspects of their duties, and their professionalism was duly noted by our guest, Mr. Williams, and myself. Recognizing Deputy Sheriff Suevis and Deputy Matt Briglia for all their coordinated efforts before, during, and after everything was completed. Exceptional teamwork. Please convey to each of them Please convey to each of the department's deputies involved in escorting Mr. Williams on Monday, February 8th, this letter of appreciation on assignment, a job well done by all of your deputies. Respectfully submitted, Roy Brewer, veteran. So That's what our heroes do day in and day out for our community and in our community, and I thank you. Chap, you want to close us out with a prayer, and we conclude today's services.